The morning sun did little to lift the heavy feeling in the house after the attempted break-in. Kendra dragged herself through the motions of getting ready for school. She kept glancing at the front door, half expecting to see it damaged, but aside from a new scratch on the metal lock plate, it looked intact. Still, the memory of the alarm blaring in the dead of night made her shiver. At breakfast, which none of them really ate, Rebecca insisted that Kendra go to school as usual. "We can't let them derail your life," she said firmly, handing Kendra her lunch bag. "Act normal. They thrive on our fear." "What about you, Mom?" Kendra asked, noting the dark circles under her mother's eyes. It didn't look like Rebecca had slept at all. "I'm going to see an old friend. Someone who might help us," Rebecca said vaguely. She had already told them that the friend on the phone, Simon, was an ex-colleague of her father's who now lived in Johannesburg. "I need advice on what to do next, and I might arrange a safer place for the file." Brandon was heading out too, though he'd be around town. He was adamant about not leaving their mother alone. "I'll drive Mom and stay with her," he told Kendra. "And I'll pick you up after school instead of Mom, all right, just in case." Normally their mother fetched Kendra, but after last night they agreed to vary their routine a bit. "Okay," Kendra acquiesced, though she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. "Be careful, both of you." "You too, sweetheart," her mom said, pulling her into a tight hug before she left. "Stick with your friends at school. Don't be alone, all right?" "I will," Kendra promised. She walked to the bus stop rather than having her family drive her, another small change for safety. The public bus ride to school was uneventful, though she found herself constantly checking if anyone on board was watching her. Everyone seemed wrapped up in their own worlds. At school, Emily greeted her at the gate with a cheerful wave. "Hey, Kendra, you missed the fun this morning. Fire drill before first period," she said as Kendra fell into step beside her. "Oh man, sorry I missed it," Kendra replied with a grin, trying to match Emily's easygoing energy. The normalcy of a fire drill in school chatter was almost jarring after the chaos of last night. "Well, not that exciting. We all just stood around in the sports field half asleep. Mr. Andrews was still clutching his coffee mug out there," Emily giggled. They headed to their lockers to grab books for first period. As Kendra opened her locker, she was relieved to find no new threatening notes. Maybe Vanessa had lost interest overnight, or maybe she was biding her time. In homeroom, Jason slid into his seat just as the bell rang. He shot Kendra a quick smile. She smiled back, but her mind was elsewhere, still replaying the break-in. She hadn't told Emily about it yet. She wasn't sure if she should tell anyone at school what happened or the deeper reasons behind it. It was dangerous knowledge. During a pause between announcements, Emily leaned over and whispered, "You okay? You seem kind of out of it." Kendra hesitated, then gave a half-truth. "Didn't sleep well last night. New house noises, you know." Emily nodded sympathetically. "I get it. The first week in my house, I woke up like 10 times a night thinking the heater noises were ghosts or something." Kendra appreciated Emily not pressing too hard. Still, a part of her wished she could confide in someone normal about her abnormal life. The morning went by in a blur. In biology class, she tried to focus on the lab exercise, but her thoughts kept drifting. Who exactly were these people hunting them? What exactly was in that file? She knew, bits and pieces, that it contained proof of some crime or wrongdoing that powerful men had committed. Her father had been determined to expose them, and he died for it. If only she had access to it, maybe she could understand why and who. She decided that she would find out more. If her mother was going to meet a friend to decide what to do, perhaps it was time that Kendra learned what they were up against. It was her family too, after all. At lunch, she sat with Emily as usual. Jason was at the table too, along with 2 other friends of theirs, a tall boy named Alan and a girl from the soccer team named Priya. Conversation swirled around an upcoming school talent show and a big soccer match on Friday. Kendra tried to join in, but she remained quieter than usual. Jason noticed. "Still tired?" he asked gently, after Emily and the others got into a debate about which band should headline the talent show. Yeah, a bit, she replied. She was grateful he chalked it up to tiredness. I think I'll be more awake after a good night's sleep. Well, maybe this will perk you up. He pulled a chocolate bar from his backpack and offered it. Sometimes a quick sugar boost helps. She smiled and accepted a piece of chocolate. Thanks. I'm sure it'll help. As she nibbled on it, Vanessa happened to walk by their table on the way across the cafeteria. She glanced over, her gaze zeroing in on Jason and Kendra. When she saw Jason offering Kendra the chocolate, Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Kendra tensed, expecting some snide remark, but Vanessa just flipped her hair and strutted off to another table. I think someone's not happy, Priya murmured, rolling her eyes toward Vanessa's retreating form. It seemed everyone was aware of Vanessa's designs on Jason. Jason sighed. I'm not her property. I wish she'd get that. Emily patted his shoulder mockingly. The curse of being popular. They all laughed, and for a moment the weight on Kendra's shoulders lightened. After lunch, they had a free study period. Emily had to go to the library to work on an assignment, and the others scattered. Jason and Kendra walked out into the courtyard, where a few students were sitting on benches enjoying the nice weather. They sat under a jacaranda tree, the ground speckled with fallen purple petals. A comfortable silence hung between them for a moment. Kendra watched a pair of birds flit between branches, wishing she could feel as free. Jason cleared his throat softly. So, how are you really liking Rosewood so far? Still good? It's good, she affirmed. People have been kind. It's a nice change. I've had some schools where breaking into cliques was impossible. He leaned back against the bench. I get that. I was actually new in middle school. I moved here in 7th grade. I remember how hard it was until I met Emily and the others. They kind of adopted me. He smiled at the memory. She looked at him curiously. Where did you move from? Up north, closer to Pretoria. My dad's work made us move here. Jason paused, then added, He works a lot. Business stuff. I don't honestly pay much attention, but it has to do with corporate finance. He's a CFO for some mining services firm, travels all over, meets with a lot of people. There was a tone in his voice that sounded like either pride or discomfort, maybe a mix of both. Corporate finance, mining. It struck a chord in Kendra, though she didn't know why yet. Sounds busy. Yeah, he's not home a lot. I mean, he loves me in his own way, provides for me and all, but we're not that close. My mom passed when I was little, so it's mostly just me and him at home when he is around. We have a housekeeper who's basically the closest thing to a parent daily. He gave a self-deprecating chuckle. I'm sorry about your mom, Kendra said softly. Thanks, it was a long time ago. Jason looked at her, blue eyes gentle. I know we just met, but if you ever want to talk about, your dad or anything, I'm willing to listen. I've found that talking about stuff, even if it's painful, kind of helps. Kendra met his eyes and saw only sincerity. It touched her that he remembered and cared. Part of her ached to open up, to tell him everything she'd been through, to not feel so alone with the secret. But she could hear her mother's warning in her head. Trust no one new with the truth. Maybe someday, she said with a small smile. It's still hard and complicated. He nodded understandingly. No pressure. The offer stands whenever. She appreciated that. In a different life, one where she wasn't hunted by criminals, she could imagine telling Jason everything. She felt sure he'd want to help if he knew. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period. They both got up. Time for history class. Ready for another thrilling installment of World War II? He joked as they headed back inside. Kendra laughed lightly. As ready as I'll ever be. They walked side by side, and behind them, Vanessa watched from across the courtyard, her expression sour. When the school day finally ended, Kendra found herself anxious to get home. Not just because she wanted to check on her mother and hear how the meeting with Simon went, but also because she had decided she would try to peek at the secret file tonight. She needed answers. She stood outside the school gate scanning for her brother's car. Instead, a familiar figure approached on foot. Brandon. He must have decided to walk to get her instead of bringing the car. Brandon lifted a hand in greeting. He was dressed casually, but she noticed he was moving a bit stiffly. "Hey, Ken. How was school?" "Not bad," she replied, falling in step with him as they started walking. "Are you okay? You're walking funny." He shrugged, an old back injury flaring up. He didn't meet her eyes as he said it, which made her suspicious. "Did something happen?" "Was it that guy from last night?" she asked in a low tone. Brandon winced and glanced around to ensure no one was listening. "It's fine, just ran into that jerk again near the grocery store. He and a buddy might have tried to pick a fight. I didn't engage again, but he shoved me around a bit. I'm just a little sore." "Brandon!" Kendra felt a surge of worry and anger. "We should tell Mom or the police." He shook his head. "No, last thing we need is more trouble, especially if it's unrelated to the people after us. This guy's just a local thug. I think he's pissed off that I embarrassed him by not getting scared or by walking away. These punks want to feel powerful. If we ignore him, he'll probably get bored." Kendra frowned but didn't argue further. She wasn't convinced it was unrelated. Bad luck seemed to follow them. She could only hope Brandon was right, and that this thug didn't escalate things. "How's Mom?" she asked as they continued through the neighborhood streets. "She's okay. Meeting with Simon went all right, I think. She can tell you about it. She did move the file, though. Brought it with her to show him. They made some plan, not sure on details." Kendra's ears perked up at that. Her mom had taken the file out of the house? Perhaps that was her chance. If her mom hadn't put it back into deep hiding yet, maybe it was accessible. "Where is it now?" she probed carefully. Brandon glanced at her sharply, then sighed. "Ken, I know that look. Don't. It's safe. Let's leave it at that. Please don't try to go looking for it. It's too dangerous." She pursed her lips. "I just want to understand what's happening, Brandon. I hate being in the dark. I know, but if you know, then you become as much of a target as Mom. Right now, they probably assume you and I are just along for the ride, not directly involved. If you start digging and they catch wind..." He didn't finish, but she knew what he meant. She'd become a target too. Truth was, she probably already was, but he had a point. Actively showing interest could raise her profile. Still, she thought, they already threatened all of us. Could it really get worse if she knew? She kept these thoughts to herself as they arrived at their house. Rebecca was in the living room going through some papers. She looked up with relief when they entered. "Thank goodness. I always feel better when you're back home safe." Brandon gave her a kiss on the cheek in greeting. "Any more excitement here?" "No, it's been quiet," Rebecca said. "I was just tidying up some documents." Kendra put down her bag. "Brandon said you met with Simon. What did he say?" Rebecca motioned for them to sit. "He agrees the situation is critical. He has some contacts that might help us, but it's tricky. Some of the people involved are very highly placed. It's not just petty criminals. We're talking about corporate and political figures." She lowered her voice as if someone might somehow overhear. "Simon believes we need a solid plan to safely leak the information in the file to authorities or the press, but in a way that doesn't lead back to us immediately. Perhaps anonymously, but before that he's going to see if we can get someone trustworthy in law enforcement to help." Brandon folded his arms. "That could take time. What do we do in the meantime?" "They already found us here." Rebecca gave a grim nod. "For now, Simon suggested we stay put but vigilant. Constantly moving might do more harm than good, especially since they seem to have resources to track us. We're trying to figure out how exactly they located us here. It might have been through some digital trail. He said he'll look into it." "How, though?" Kendra asked. "Does he know some hacker or something?" Rebecca gave a tiny smile. Simon has become something of a cybersecurity expert. He used to work with your father on investigations. He's very tech-savvy. He thinks our home network or phone might have been compromised. He checked my phone for spyware and found nothing obvious, but he gave me a new secure phone to use for any sensitive calls. This was a lot for Kendra to absorb. At least her mother had a plan and someone helping, which was a relief. But she still didn't know the details of what was in that file. Corporate and political figures. She wondered if any of them were names she might recognize from news or even personally. She considered pushing for more information, but her mother looked exhausted and on edge. So instead she said, "That's good, I guess. Did you have to show him the file? I mean, is that safe?" "I trust Simon with my life," Rebecca said firmly. "I did show him part of it, but I didn't leave it with him. I only let him take some notes. We both agreed moving it around too much is a risk. For now, it's back in my safe hiding place." So it was back in the house. Kendra tried to not show too much interest. "That's good. I hope his contacts come through." Rebecca smiled sadly at her daughter's attempt to sound calm. "Me too, darling. How about you? How was school? You look a bit pale." "Just the usual first-week adjustment stuff," Kendra said quickly. "I think I'll go do some homework before dinner." She went to her room, her mind racing. The file was here, hidden. She had a fairly good idea that her mother kept it somewhere in her bedroom or maybe study if the house had one. In previous houses, her mom often hid important things in the master bedroom, like in a hollow part of the closet or under a false bottom drawer. She had never shown them exactly where, probably to protect them by plausible deniability. Now, with her mother busy and perhaps planning dinner or resting, and Brandon likely in his room or keeping watch on the front porch, this might be her chance to sneak a peek. Her heart thumped with nervous excitement at the thought of finally seeing what was in that file. If she could just get a look at the names or evidence, maybe she'd understand who these enemies were. And knowledge was power. She waited until she heard the sound of her mother in the kitchen. The clatter of pans suggested starting dinner, and Brandon stepping outside. He often stepped out to smoke a cigarette in the backyard when he was stressed, despite Mom's disapproval. Quietly, Kendra crept into her mother's bedroom. The room smelled faintly of her mother's perfume. She felt a pang of guilt for snooping, but she pushed it aside. This was for the greater good, she told herself. She carefully opened the closet. At the bottom, there were stacks of shoe boxes and folded blankets. She gently moved some aside, trying not to disturb the order too much. Nothing obvious like a briefcase or locked box. Then she remembered her mother's favorite hiding trick, false bottoms. Kendra pulled out the bottom drawer of the dresser completely and peeked underneath. There, a thin, flat metal box taped to the underside of the drawer. She held her breath. That looked promising. She carefully peeled it off. It was a slim case, like a waterproof document case. It wasn't locked. She opened it and found a USB flash drive and a small stack of papers. Her mouth went dry as she recognized her father's handwriting on one of the top pages. It looked like a list of names and phone numbers scribbled hastily. Some names had stars next to them, and some were circled. She scanned the names. They didn't ring a bell at first, except one, Simon Taylor, which had a star, likely her mom's friend Simon. He might have been one of her father's allies. But other names. One in particular caught her eye. Richard Coleman, CFO, Atwood Mining Limited. Next to that, in parentheses, her father had written, suspected laundering bribery. The name Coleman seemed familiar. Coleman. Where had she heard that recently? Her mind flashed to school. Jason's last name, Coleman, could be a coincidence. Coleman wasn't the most uncommon name. But Richard Coleman, CFO of a mining company. Jason had said his father was a CFO in mining. It couldn't be a coincidence. Her breath quickened. She rifled through more pages. There was a typewritten report with her father's old company letterhead. He used to work for a financial auditing firm, detailing discrepancies in accounts connected to Atwood Mining Ltd. and another company called Bayview Infrastructure. It mentioned suspected kickbacks to government officials. In the margins, her father had penned, RCHL and DS meeting 3-4, evidence of collusion, photos taken. Photos? There were no photos in the case, likely digital, maybe on the flash drive. She gingerly picked up the flash drive, her mind racing. Did she dare plug it into a computer, maybe her mom's laptop? But it might be encrypted or require a password. Just then, she heard a floorboard creak in the hallway, her mother's footsteps approaching. Kendra's heart nearly stopped. She swiftly placed the pages and flash drive back in the case and closed it. Realizing she'd taken the drawer out fully, she scrambled to slide it back into place. She had just fit the drawer back and kicked the shoeboxes to roughly their original positions when her mother's figure appeared in the doorway. "Kendra? What are you doing in my room?" Rebecca asked, perplexed. Kendra turned, holding one of the blankets she'd moved. Thinking fast, she said, "I was looking for this. The AC in my room is too strong and I wanted an extra blanket." She tried to make it sound casual. Her mother frowned softly. "You could have just asked me. I would have brought one." "Sorry," Kendra mumbled, her cheeks burning. She hoped her nervous energy could be passed off as just being caught doing something mildly wrong, not the true extent of her snooping. Rebecca seemed tired and perhaps didn't suspect much. "It's okay. Grab what you need and come to the kitchen. I could use a hand with dinner." "Sure. I'll be right there," Kendra replied. Her mother left, and Kendra took a second to put the slim case back exactly where it was taped under the drawer, pressing the tape firmly. It seemed to hold. She straightened up, blanket in hand, heart pounding. That was close. But what she had seen, that was more than enough to leave her badly shaken. Jason's father, Richard Coleman, was in her father's notes as a suspect. She felt a swirl of emotions, confusion, betrayal, anger, disbelief. Could Jason know? Probably not, she reasoned. He was just a teenager like her. But his father, if he was involved in whatever corruption or crime her father discovered, he might also be involved in her father's death. The powerful men her mom spoke of likely included Richard Coleman. She helped her mother in the kitchen on autopilot, chopping vegetables, setting the table, all while her mind reeled. Brandon came back inside, washing up and joining them. They ate together quietly, none of them in a talkative mood tonight. Kendra avoided eye contact as much as possible, worried that her eyes might give away the storm going on inside her. She felt a little guilty towards her mother and brother for snooping, but at the same time, a spark of righteous anger had ignited within her. If Richard Coleman was part of why her father was dead, how was she supposed to go to school and smile and talk to his son like nothing was wrong? Her mind flashed back to Jason's kind face, his genuine offer to listen if she ever needed to talk. She thought of how he had stood up for her with Vanessa, how he made her laugh in history class. It was hard to connect that image of Jason with the idea that his father might be a murderer, or at least a criminal who got her dad killed. Jason admired his father enough to mention him. He probably had no clue about the dark things. How could someone like Jason come from a man capable of murder, she wondered. Maybe she was jumping to conclusions. Her father's notes didn't outright say murderer, just corruption and crimes. However, the threat and reality of their situation suggested those men would kill to protect themselves. After dinner, she excused herself to finish homework. Instead, she opened her laptop and did a quick search for Richard Coleman Atwood Mining. Several results popped up, including an older news article about a bribery scandal investigation. Clicking it, she read, "Anonymous sources within the company alleged that Atwood's CFO, Richard Coleman, had arranged illicit payments to secure mining rights permits. Coleman has denied the allegations, and an internal audit found no conclusive evidence. The whistleblower, financial auditor Michael Roberts, died in a car accident shortly after the investigation was launched, casting a pall over the case. Kendra's throat tightened. There in black and white was her father's name. She felt tears prick her eyes reading about him as a whistleblower. So he had been working for a company and tried to expose them. Or perhaps he found something during an audit and someone leaked that to the press. And then he died. She continued reading, heart pounding harder with each sentence. Authorities ruled the car accident was unrelated, but colleagues of Roberts have hinted he feared for his life in the weeks leading up to his death. No charges were filed against Coleman or Atwood Mining, and the case was eventually closed. So that was it. Everything her family had been through was summarized coldly in a few lines of an old article, a piece of news to most people, but it was her entire life. And Jason's father had apparently gotten away with it, at least legally. She saw a small photo embedded in the article. A man in his 40s in a suit, identified in the caption as Richard Coleman. He looked distinguished, with neatly combed dark hair touched with gray, and an air of corporate confidence. It was definitely Jason's father. She recognized him now, as she had glimpsed a family photo on Jason's phone wallpaper earlier. Jason had a picture of him and his dad fishing as his phone background, she recalled. Kendra closed the laptop, hands shaking. It was one thing to suspect, another to have confirmation staring her in the face. She felt sick. She barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face, and then Jason's father's face, and it twisted into nightmares of Jason's father chasing her with blood on his hands. By morning, she had resolved what she would do. She couldn't carry on a fake friendship or budding romance with Jason under these circumstances. Maybe it was unfair to blame him for his father's sins, but it felt like a betrayal of her own father's memory to stay close with the son of the man responsible. She arrived at school early, having convinced her mom she could take the bus again, and that it was important not to disrupt her schooling. Her mom, preoccupied with her own plans and worries, agreed, albeit with some reluctance. In truth, Kendra wanted to be alone before classes to clear her head and avoid talking more than necessary. She needed to distance herself from Jason and figure out how to handle what she knew, but avoiding someone you share classes with is easier said than done. She ran into Jason in the hallway before homeroom. He smiled at her in that warm way that used to give her butterflies, but now it just made her feel guilty and angry all at once. "Hey, Kendra, you get in early today," he said, falling into step with her. "Yeah, I caught an earlier bus," she replied, not meeting his gaze. Jason picked up on her tone immediately. "Everything all right?" "Fine, I'm fine," she said curtly. He blinked in surprise at her brusque answer. "Oh, did I do something?" She stopped walking and took a breath, looking at him directly. Those earnest blue eyes. This was going to hurt, but maybe it's best he thinks it's about him rather than the real reason for his own safety, too. "Jason," she began, trying to keep her voice even, "I think we should probably keep our distance." His brow furrowed in confusion. "What? Why?" Before she could formulate a careful answer, fate intervened in the form of Vanessa, who had apparently been eavesdropping just a few lockers away under the pretense of reapplying lip gloss. "Kendra, if you don't want him around, I'll gladly take him off your hands," Vanessa interjected with a saccharine smile, stepping up to Jason and looping her arm through his in a proprietary way. Kendra felt a flash of irritation at Vanessa's intrusion, but maybe it was for the best. If Jason was occupied by Vanessa, he'd leave her alone. Jason gently but firmly removed Vanessa's arm. "Not now, Vanessa," he said, eyes still on Kendra. He looked hurt and puzzled. "Kendra, did something happen? I thought we were friends." His genuine pain made Kendra's chest ache. She turned away, unable to hold his gaze. "I just have a lot going on and I need space, okay? It's not personal." The lie tasted bitter because it was entirely personal for her. Jason opened his mouth to say more, but Mr. Andrews came by shooing students toward homeroom. Let's go, homeroom starting. With a frustrated sigh, Jason stepped back. Fine, if that's what you want, he said softly. I'll give you space. Vanessa looked triumphantly between them, but neither Jason nor Kendra paid her any attention. All day, Kendra avoided unnecessary interactions. She sat with Emily at lunch, but Jason didn't join them. She caught sight of him at another table with some of his guy friends, looking glum. Vanessa was hovering at his side, clearly pleased to have his attention for now, even if he seemed disinterested in her chatter. Emily noticed the distance and asked quietly, "Are you and Jason okay? Did something happen?" Kendra shrugged, trying to act casual. "Nothing really. I just realized I need to focus on other things. Didn't want to lead him on or anything. You know he likes me, right?" she added, trying to sound like that was the issue. Emily gave her a sympathetic look. "He does seem to, and I could tell you liked him too, I thought. But if you're not ready or not into it, that's okay. I just hope you two can still be friends. Jason's a good guy." Her words only made Kendra feel worse. She mumbled, "Yeah, he is a good guy," and left it at that. By the final period, she felt emotionally exhausted. She kept replaying in her mind the discovery she'd made and the conversation she needed to have with her mother. She knew she had to tell her mom that she knew, and specifically that one of her classmates is the son of their enemy. It was too important to keep secret out of fear of getting scolded for snooping. After school, she saw Brandon's car waiting for her at the curb again. Apparently, they decided not to let her take the bus home, likely out of caution. She was thankful. She just wanted to retreat home quickly. She got in the car and immediately said, "Brandon, I need to talk to you and Mom. It's about Dad's case." She figured easing into it with her brother first might help. Brandon glanced at her in surprise and concern. "What's going on?" She took a deep breath. "I looked at the file last night. I saw some names." Brandon's eyes widened and he nearly slammed the brakes in shock, causing the car behind him to honk. He pulled over to the side of the street before exiting the school zone, turning to face her, anger and worry etched on his face. "Are you serious, Kendra? You did what?" She swallowed but set her chin stubbornly. "I had to know, Brandon, and it's a good thing I did, because one of those names is Jason's father." Brandon's expression shifted from anger to astonishment. "What? Jason, the friend from school you mentioned?" "Yes, his name is Jason Coleman. His father is Richard Coleman. I saw it in Dad's notes. Dad thought Richard Coleman was involved in the corruption he found. And then I found a news article saying Dad was a whistleblower against Coleman's company." Her words came out in a rush. It was a relief in a way to share it. Brandon ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this. "This is... wow. What are the odds of that?" "Pretty low unless it's not a coincidence." The thought chilled her. What if Jason being friendly to me wasn't an accident? What if his father planted him to get close and find out about us? Brandon shook his head firmly. "Let's not jump to paranoia. You said you just met him and he's your classmate. It's probably just bad luck. A city like this, a fancy school. Of course, kids of wealthy executives go there. And we landed there trying to lay low, not knowing." She bit her lip. "Maybe. I was horrible to him today to push him away. He doesn't know why. I didn't tell him anything about Dad, obviously. I can't even look at him knowing who his father is." Brandon put a hand on her shoulder. "I get it. But listen, you cannot breathe a word of this to him or anyone. If his father is involved, you better believe he wouldn't hesitate to use his own son unwittingly to get info on us. Or if Jason found out who you are, he might tell his dad even if he doesn't mean us harm." "I know," she said quietly. "We have to tell Mom. She needs to know this connection. I'm sorry I snooped, but aren't you glad I did now?" He gave a half sigh, half chuckle. Yeah, maybe. Still, you scared me. You're lucky Mom didn't catch you properly. Let's get home and talk to her. They continued the drive, and Kendra felt a knot of anxiety reforming. How would her mother react? Would she want to pack up and run again immediately? Would she forbid Kendra from returning to that school? When they got home, they found Rebecca in the living room once more, this time with a map spread out on the coffee table and a second cell phone next to her. She looked up in surprise at their serious faces. Kendra, what's wrong? Did something happen at school? Kendra closed the door behind them and took a breath. Mom, we need to talk. It's important. Rebecca's eyes darted between her children and she slowly stood. All right. Talk. Brandon gently guided their mother to sit on the couch. It's about the people who killed Dad. One of them might be closer than we realized. Rebecca frowned in confusion. What do you mean? Kendra came and sat next to her. Mom, I looked at Dad's file. She forged on quickly as she saw her mother's face darken. I know I shouldn't have, but after the break-in and everything, I had to know what we're dealing with. I'm sorry, but I found a name I recognized. Jason's father. Rebecca's mouth parted in shock. Jason? That boy you mentioned? His father? He's Richard Coleman, Kendra said. Dad's notes mentioned him, and I found an article. He was the CFO of the company Dad was investigating. Dad accused him of bribery, and then Dad died. It can't be a coincidence. A silence fell as Rebecca absorbed this. She covered her mouth with one hand, eyes wide. Oh my God, all this time I've known some of the names in that file, but I never imagined one of them would be connected to you at your school. Brandon chimed in softly. Kendra was worried Jason might have been planted or something, but I told her it's likely a coincidence given the school's demographics. Still, it's a security breach in a way. Rebecca looked at Kendra with a mix of concern and anger, though the anger wasn't personal. This is exactly why I didn't want you getting too close to anyone here, and why I didn't want you to know the details, honey. Now you're hurt and feeling betrayed, and it's not even his fault. I'm not blaming Jason, Mom, Kendra insisted, though part of her heart did blame him by association. But I couldn't just keep hanging out with him not knowing if his father was one of the people responsible. Rebecca nodded, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind Kendra's ear gently. I understand. You did the right thing cutting off the friendship for now. I'm sorry, sweetie. I know you liked him. A tear slipped down Kendra's cheek before she could stop it. I really did, Mom. It hurts. Rebecca pulled her into a hug. I know, I'm sorry. Hugged in her mother's arms, Kendra allowed herself a brief moment of vulnerability to cry over this lost friendship and doomed romance that barely began. Brandon rubbed her back comfortingly, too. After a minute, she sat up and wiped her face, trying to regain composure. I hope I didn't tip him off in any way. I just told him I needed space. If he's a decent guy, he'll respect that and not pry, Brandon said, but we should keep an eye on him from a distance, just to make sure he's not poking around about you. You think he'd investigate me? Kendra asked, surprised. I don't know. If his feelings were hurt or if he's confused, he might talk to his dad about you or try to find out why you suddenly pushed him away, Brandon said. We just need to be cautious. Rebecca nodded. I'll inform Simon about this connection. He might know more about Coleman's current activities. Also, going forward, Kendra, I think it's best if Brandon or I drive you to and from school. No exceptions. If Coleman or his people catch wind, the school could become a point of vulnerability. All right, Kendra agreed. She had no desire to stray on her own now. That night, after the emotional roller coaster of the day, she lay in bed feeling raw, but oddly resolved. Now she had a face to one of the monsters in her life. It made the fight more personal than ever. Kendra whispered into the darkness, promising her absent father, I won't let them get away with it, Dad. I'll make sure the truth comes out. Somehow we'll make them pay. She didn't notice the shadow of a figure standing outside on the sidewalk across the street, obscured by the dark. The figure watched their house for a long minute, then got into a black car and drove off into the night.